Hello everybody and welcome back to a World of Warships Blitz video, and this video is a how-to video that looks at commander skills. So we shall go into my Amagi commander, who you'll notice I've been training up for something other than the Amagi. So I haven't chosen any skills. He's actually going to be my Yamato captain when I eventually get there, and I don't want to be reselecting skills, so I've left him blank, although I probably could have a reasonable guess. But anyway, it makes him a perfect candidate for assessing skills. So what we'll do is we'll run through each of the levels one at a time to explain my personal skill selection method, and we'll start with tier 1 or level 1, and so I'll run it through from a point of view of the process that I would run through. So if I have a carrier captain, he will get aerobatic manoeuvre without question. That 10% return speed, or plus 8% return speed, I thought it was 10, basically means that you get essentially an extra sortie once every 16, I think. Anyway, basically what it means is that your planes return faster, which is your cycle time for a plane in and out is reduced by 4% effectively, which means that every 25 sorties you get a 26th. But yeah, the other advantage it has is that there is the process or the trick for engaging fighters over your own ship to use the return to base, and if you've got plus 8% return speed, your fighters won't be caught up with while the enemy fighters are dragged over your ships. So it does have a few advantages. However, if you are in a destroyer or I'd almost say a cruiser, and all my cruisers now that I'm a bit smarter, have emergency response. Destroyers get their steering gear and their power systems shot up quite a lot. So what this does is this provides faster recovery. Now, you can use the repair party, but the repair party is also to prevent flooding, to reduce or to extinguish fires, and can be used to repair other modules such as damaged armaments or damaged torpedo tubes. So you want to minimize your drain on that. So what you can do is, if you're in a position where having the steering gear or the power system taken out is a serious problem, you can use your repair party. But otherwise, you may want to save your repair party, or you may have already deployed your repair party, in which case you definitely want that 50%. Otherwise, if you're in a battleship, then I would take underwater protection expert. So yeah, battleships are a prime target for torpedoes, and although you can learn how to avoid the most of them, you'll sometimes get hit, and those other two really don't make as much value for battleships. I mean, sometimes my battleship steering gets damaged, but actually I can't remember, and the last time battleships had their engines damaged, can't remember that either. So that is level 1, nice and easy. What ship are you driving? Level 2 will start with the most logical. If your ship has sonar or air defense, I would choose this. So if you're in a Fiji, it's got air defense, choose this. If you're in a Hipper, you've got sonar, choose this. Or if you are likely to use the captain frequently in a ship that can have sonar or air defense, I would use this. So if you, for example, have an American captain and you're going to be sticking him in the Atlanta, or a British captain, you're going to be sticking him in the Belfast, I would choose this. That extra air defense alert is very useful, especially when we get to level 4, and I'll explain when we get to level 4. And the extra sonar is such a useful skill when you're in combat with a destroyer, or a destroyer's close by, or you're detected and you don't know what you're detected by. That sonar is such a useful skill to have, so having an extra one is fantastic. Then it's a bit of a toss-up. I've never actually chosen the main battery repair time, and maybe I should consider it. What I generally go for is the plus 15% detection range of incoming enemy torpedoes. So if you're facing a very well aimed strike and you're in a battleship, then this doesn't really do much. But if the If you're already in a turn or the strike isn't particularly well aimed, then that plus 15% just can make so much difference. So I would generally choose this. If you're in a destroyer, maybe you'd want to repair your torpedo tubes faster, but if you're getting the torpedo tube shot up, you've got bigger problems. So for level 2, you could choose either torpedo alert or armament repair expert. But if you can, use these sonar or air defense, battlefield support is what you want to take. Level 3. Level 3 is an interesting one. Let's do the easy stuff first. Preheating. That increased maximum speed and acceleration. If it's a destroyer captain, I give that. Because basically those caps, getting into those caps, particularly, or any ship with smoke, I take this as well. Because getting into those ships with getting into those caps quickly is what wins those games. So this is sort of like a team skill. So basically a destroyer or a fast cruiser or any cruiser with smoke, like the Huanghe or the Leander or the Fiji, benefits from this. Otherwise, I do know that some people like the artillery maintenance expert. I don't go for this simply because I don't like the performance of my ship changing depending on how it is. And it's easy to get knocked below 75%. And if you're reliant on this traverse speed and this dispersion, then, you know, I find it's maybe for me, I find I go too far forward, so maybe I just get hammered often enough that for me, I don't spend enough time above 75% to really get the full benefit. So what I do is I take the 10% damage control kit cooldown time, and if you've got a fire going, then having 10% off that cooldown is really worth it. So if you're a destroyer captain, you may want to take the high alert rather than the preheating in any case, because you may find that you get caught on fire often enough that you want to have to deal with that. Okay, so so basically if you're a destroyer or light cruiser with smoke, preheating, otherwise I'd go with high alert. And this artillery maintenance expert, it's not for me. You may think differently. Level 4, okay. If your ship can have air defense, the air defense skill or consumable, then take the air defense expert. Nice and simple. Now, I talked about the benefit of an extra air defense alert and the air defense expert. So having the battlefield support and the air defense expert in collaboration is beneficial. What this does is you get more of them, and this increased cooldown or the reduced cooldown means that if the enemy carrier is flying planes across the map, often you'll find that your air defense, your air AA alert skill or consumable will become available off cooldown just in time for the next wave. So unless you're particularly close to a carrier, you'll actually find that the cycle time, just get the rhythm of it, is just right for each attacking wave, or maybe just slightly off. So the first time you trigger a little bit early, and the second time you may trigger a little bit late, but those two are a powerful combination, and it's nice to shoot down aircraft. If your ship does not have AA alert, or you're not going to use it in a ship that does have AA alert, choose Victorious Charge. That's it. It's not a great skill. You'll recover a little bit of hit points when you destroy enemy ships. You don't often destroy that many, 2 or 3, so maybe it's 3%, 4.5%, 1.5%. Not a lot. Still, every bit helps. Do not choose Unstoppable. If you have got a Kraken, you have killed 5 enemy ships. It is unlikely that you have killed the first 5 enemy ships and none of your other team have killed any ships. So often, if the number of Krakens I've got is minuscule. So if we just drop out of there for a moment, and we go into our service record, and we go into our battle statistics, you can see that I've played 7,887 battles, which is a sort of scary total. And in that time, I have 25 Kraken unleashed. That is something in the order of 0.03%. So definitely do not pick a captain skill that is only valuable sometimes in a small proportion of 0.3% of your games. If that makes, is it 0.3 or 0.03? It's small, and that assumes that you have ships left over after you've killed the fifth one. And I can tell you with those Krakens, I'm not sure that that's often the case. So, and besides which, if you've got a Kraken and you go out of the game, if you end on that note, it's still a good game. So definitely don't choose. So you've got two to choose from. Air Defence Expert if you've got AA Alert, or could use AA Alert. Everything else Victorious Charge. Nice and simple. Tier 4, Tier 5, or Level 5 should I say. Right. If you have a rapid reload or precise aiming system, definitely get this. Rapid reload means you do damage more frequently because you reload faster. It may not be great, but it's enough. And the precise aiming system means you do more damage because more shots land on target. You know, it may not be a big difference, but every difference counts. So if your ship that he is in has precise aiming or rapid reload, you grab this skill. If you are likely to use them in a premium that has this skill, and I have, for example, a Warspite with rapid reload, my Emerald Captain has this skill. So this is no good in the Emerald, but it is fantastic in the Warspite. Okay then. Otherwise, I would choose Survivalist. That's a personal choice, plus 15% rather than 12.5%. Not a great boost, but still, you know, every little bit helps as far as hit points are concerned. I no longer choose Daredevil, so I'd take Survivalist over Daredevil, and that is because when you're at less than 33%, yeah, the rudder shift time and the transverse speed helps, but the problem I have is that it's sort of difficult to tell you when you're at that 33%, and it goes back to the fact that I personally don't like contextual changes in the performance of my ship. However, for a destroyer perhaps, maybe it's the right thing to do, because 2.5% improvement on hit point recovery with the repair kit isn't a lot. So maybe, yeah, I'd leave that up to you. But basically, if you can rapid reload, precise aiming, definitely take the Fire Supremacy. Otherwise, you can choose between Daredevil and Survivalist. Level 6. Nice and simple. If you have Sonar, like my Belfast, then you take the Sonar skill duration and the Sonar cooldown. The times after your Sonar has gone off active and it's in cooldown, you know, the less time you have it in cooldown, the more it's going to be available when you need it. And the longer the skill duration lasts, then, you know, the better benefit you get from it. So the combination of battlefield support and recon and surveillance, the skill, means that you can spend the maximum time covered by Sonar. And Sonar's great because seeing those torpedoes early just makes a massive difference. So if your ship can use this, use Sonar, does use Sonar, or a premium can use Sonar, definitely get that skill. Otherwise, it's a bit of a toss-up. I would generally go for Generalist. Basically, you know, you recover a little bit of hit points, which is always good, and the additional resistance for 25 seconds, you know, is nice. Because, yeah, if you're using it and you're caught on fire, increasing the time that you've got resistance to fire is helpful. For something like a Gnevny or a Minsk that are rapid fire, then potentially exploit weakness. That's the only change I'd make. For a battleship, I wouldn't do this because fires and flooding are so often dealt with that it's hard to get it routinely, you know, to routinely hit them when they're, you know, when they're on fire or flooding. But for these rapid fire destroyers, that makes quite a big difference, basically. So, you know, because you're always able to fire, always hitting a target, you switch target and you just hit it with your HE and away you go. So it could actually be beneficial. Because, yeah, although the fire, that additional fire resistance, 1% of a destroyer's hit points isn't actually that much. And yeah, doing damage. You're out there to do damage. So maybe exploit weakness for a rapid fire destroyer or rapid fire cruiser. Generalist pretty much for everything else that doesn't have sonar, in which case recon and surveillance. Level 7. Nice and simple. If you are an aircraft carrier, you get dogfight specialist. No questions asked. Basically it. If you're an aircraft carrier, get that skill. If you have precise aiming, definitely take the skill. Now this is critical for battleships, because if we go to your precise aiming, you'll see that it gives you something like 19 or 20 seconds in general. Less than the reload time. Adding 25% means that you double the effectiveness of your rapid reload. This marksman skill, what you do is you hit it, you fire, and then by the time you reload, you make sure that you're aiming on target. You'll get a second use of the precise aiming out of this skill. And that cooldown means that if you don't use it early in the battle, you use it later in the battle, you're more likely to get through all of them. And I recommend that you use the precise aiming, because that improved dispersion is just wonderful. The more shots you get on target, the more damage you do. So if you can, or if you have a premium that could have precise aiming, then you get this skill. Otherwise, if you don't meet either of those two criteria, minus 10% repair kit cooldown is what I'd go for. These level 7 skills are all pretty damn good, actually. So yeah, so even the consolation skill is pretty good, because minus 10% repair kit cooldown is, well, if you're on low health, sometimes you're just waiting for those numbers to hit 0, and having a 10% improvement is fantastic. Level 8. So obviously we're going beyond where my captain is trained, but anyway. If you have smoke, I take this. If you have a Belfast, you definitely take that, because the Belfast smoke seems to last a long time to start with. The cooldown is great. That's a third cooldown. That 15% duration's fantastic. This is all good stuff if you have that skill. Otherwise, if you don't have smoke, or you don't use it in a premium that has smoke, I would basically use the extinguisher. So the mist weaver, if you're a smoke, if you're a smoke capable ship. Otherwise, extinguisher, because you get set on fire a lot, and the higher up the tiers you go, the more you get set on fire. I personally don't recommend adrenaline rush. Although that reload time and torpedo tube reload time and all that rest of it's really good. Well, the secondary battery reload time, if you're at 25% of your maximum hit points and you're within secondary battery or automatic secondary battery range, then yeah, you ain't going to be in the battle too much longer. Minus 7.5% torpedo tube reload. Torpedoes are revenge weapons, so yeah, maybe, but in the main battery, what I find is that at this point, you're so focused on survival and you're manoeuvring so much that you're waiting for your turrets to turn to get the guns back on target. So I actually find this of limited benefit. So I definitely go with extinguisher rather than adrenaline rush. That would be my last choice. So smoke mist weaver, first choice if you can use it. Otherwise, extinguisher, and leave adrenaline rush alone. Right, level 9. I love level 9, especially for my Tirpitz and my Bismarck. If you're a battleship or have secondary armaments, definitely if you have secondaries, you get close quarters and combat expert. Close quarters combat expert is the choice if you have secondaries. And if you are a German battleship, this is your goal. This is your entire goal in life. Whatever else you want to do, you want your commander to get this minus 15% dispersion, because with all the equipment and mods and all the expert, the elites poured into your secondaries, those secondaries become extremely powerful on things like the Bismarck or the Tirpitz or the Scharnhorst or the Gneisenau. You spend a lot of time on the secondaries. In fact, for those German battleships, that's what I say, is that you spend a lot of time on the secondaries. If you don't have secondaries, if you're in a destroyer, or if you have engine acceleration, then I'd go with engine overload. So Close quarters and combat expert and engine overload may be both useful for a French battleship. I would definitely go with close quarters combat expert. If neither of those apply, then you might as well go for demolition expert, because that's your consolation prize. Sorry guys. So hopefully that makes it nice and simple. If you have secondaries, close quarters. Otherwise, if you have engine acceleration, engine overload. Otherwise, demolition expert. Level 10. Nice and simple again. If you have rapid reload, you want to 25% increase in the skill duration. Definitely, that is your number one choice. Number two choice is, number one choice is that master reloader. If you can use it, or you have a premium that could use it, like my Warspite, for example. So my Emerald Captain will get master reloader. No good in the Emerald, but he's used for the Warspite, so go for it. Compartment maintenance is the second choice. Minus 15% damage taken from flooding. When you're flooding, it hurts, right? The fire protection is better, but because flooding generally, you're more focused on, I'll let a fire burn, but I won't let flooding carry on unabated. But still, this slows down the burn time if there's nothing you can do about it. So compartment maintenance is definitely second choice after master reloader. Third choice, honor seeker. Yeah, it's nice to do extra damage to enemy ships, and but obtaining a medal in battle. First strike maybe. Confederate, you get really late in the battle. Kraken, well, we've already spoken about how rare that is. The only medals that you actually get during the course of the battle, Witherer, Big Caliber, those are all medals that arrive really late in the game. So this is really of limited benefit unless you get a first strike. If by the time you've got a Confederate, let's say a Witherer or a Big Caliber, and if you're lucky enough to have got a first strike, that's a 4.5% increase in damage. That's pretty damn good, but that's not many battles will you get there. So Honor Seeker is last one on my list. Level 9 level 11 and level 12. If you've got here, you probably have a better idea than I do, to be fair. But let's go through them anyway. If you're a carrier, Dauntless Dive. There you go, nice and simple. It's the only one that affects carriers, away you go. Here you have two that affect the main armament, and if you switch between main armament, it's going to be a bit of a challenge. So let's do the nice and simple one. Armoured Piercing Cap Shell. If you're a German cruiser, apart from the York, or a German battleship, definitely Armoured Piercing Cap Shell. If you're a battleship, apart from the Nelson, Armoured Piercing Cap Shell. That's where you do damage to your peers on the enemy team, the battleships. So unless your battleship is a known HE spammer, and basically the Nelson's the only one I can think of, then Armoured Piercing Cap Shell is what I'd go for. If your AP is good, like German cruisers, again, this same one. Otherwise, if you're a destroyer or a cruiser like the Cleveland or the York, or anything where you spend most of your big damage to big ships relies on HE, I would go with the inertial fuse high explosive shell. Basically, really what it does is it improves the HE cell penetration, which means that instead of getting half hits, you're more likely to get full hits. So my recommendation is that you go for the inertial fused high explosive, unless you're on one of those cases where the Armoured Piercing Cap Shell helps that AP. So if that makes sense. So your carriers get the Dauntless Dive, German cruisers apart from the York, and German battleships, any battleships get the apart from the Nelson, get Armoured Piercing Cap Shell. Everything else, inertia fuse high explosive. Level 12. I still haven't got to make up my mind here, but if you're a destroyer and you're relying on torpedoes, Giant Hunter is the way to go. Nice and simple. If you're an aircraft carrier, I would probably go with Giant Hunter as well, because your torpedoes are your real smashers. If you're not torpedo armed, and you're a large ship like a battleship, I would probably go with Horizontal Protection Expert, because you're going to spend a lot of your time on fire. It's got a big deck. Me personally, Citadel Strike, you know, it's great to get that additional damage, and maybe if you have a ship that gets a lot of citadels, if you know that the ship gets a lot of citadels, then you want to bump up the damage, then I'd go for this skill. But you have to already know that you're there. This improves the damage. It doesn't improve the chance of causing a citadel. So if you're not getting citadels in the ship, don't get the skill and expect it to improve things. So really the case is, if you're a torpedo user and maybe for something like Russian cruisers and Russian destroyers, you may not consider yourself a primary torpedo user, get Giant Hunter. Otherwise, I'd get Horizontal Protection Expert, unless you know the ship gets lots of citadels already, in which case you could consider Citadel Strike. So that is the run through the list of skills. I hope that you find this useful when you get to the point of choosing skills. It's much simpler now that I've got a bit of experience, because a lot of my ships, when I started out, have the Underwater Protection Expert and the Torpedo Alert, because torpedoes were a big thing when I started out because I didn't know how to deal with them. Now I've become a bit more mature at my gameplay, and I know how to fake torpedoes or to bait torpedoes. I'm not having nearly the same issue. So these skills, I have on a lot of my captains that I really want to reset, to be honest. Anyway, I hope that was useful, pardon me, and it helps you with the difficult process of choosing skills for your captains. Anyway, if you disagree with any of these, please comment, and I'm happy to do an update if there's something that a reason or a justification that I've missed for a different choice. Absolutely happy to be told I'm wrong. So leave a comment, and otherwise, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.